you just start the video?
I have very distinct opinions about flankers. Now, as you probably already know, flankers are such a massive part of the fragrance market and industry today. It is a very substantial way for companies to keep that revenue coming in, because let's be real, let's get it out the way.
Flankers are cash grabs.
But if we are going to entertain flankers, we can at least take a deeper look and entertain the ideas of nuance and creativity, because they do exist even amongst the world of flankers, and those are my favorite ones. And in a nutshell, what I believe a flanker should be is taking the original DNA and not just tweaking it, not just reproportioning notes, not just making it fresher or making it less fresh. We're talking about adding a new personality to it. The core DNA is there, it is undeniable, it is detectable. At first spray, you can tell where it comes from, but immediately it has a different personality, and that can go a number of ways, and as a result, it has a different function. It does not have to be worn. In fact, it's better if it is meant to be worn in different scenarios to the original. That way it's not redundant, because let's be real, we can talk about scent and we can dive into stuff all we want and find the differences, but when it comes down to function, that is what matters the most. You're wearing these out in the world. Do you really need 3 different Acqua Di Gios that all serve the same purpose for the summertime? And I'm not hating on Acqua Di Gio, because we have a flanker of it on this list. So these are flankers that I actually appreciate and I respect, because they do what I believe a flanker should do. And stay tuned to the end, because I'm going to feature 5 pairs of fragrances that I believe are not great flankers, albeit really great fragrances, and I do like them and I wear them and I will continue to recommend them. They are
unnecessary.
So stay tuned. Anyway, let's dive right into it. We have to get an honorable mention out the way. This is a biased pick, and therefore I cannot place it in the actual ranked list. But I have to mention it because I'm the creative director for this fragrance, and I created it to be the type of flanker that I would want. So, flanker of brass and soul. Love this stuff. This is me in a bottle, at least a part of me. We have second soul. This was intended again to be a perfect flanker of brass and soul. It takes the core DNA, that core identity, and it gives it a new personality. In this case, making it darker, richer, more mysterious, more alluring perhaps. This can get pretty alluring on my skin. I love the way it dries down to this sweet ambery warmth coming from kind of a fresh, watery, bright juniper, soapy vibe that a lot of people were not expecting and found very, very surprising, because they think I'm just a walking tobacco leaf in a jazz club, and I talk with a deep voice, so everything I do should be dark and smoky and boozy and shadowy. Guys, we're multifaceted people. You see what I show you here on YouTube, but if you know me in real life, you know that this is me. I'm a pretty jovial person, so that was represented here, but we do have a different personality here. That's all I'm gonna say about it. I implore you to check it out. There's gonna be a link down below. It is available for pre-order at the time I'm shooting this. So if you do want to take part in a limited time heartfelt creation, again, a flanker created in the image I would want, then do check out Second Soul. I do believe it is a beautiful elevation inside and out. Again, link down below. All right, these are ranked essentially in order from least powerful to most powerful in terms of the personality it is imposing. This first one up here is coming from Azzaro. I don't care for this fragrance. There's a couple of those on this list, but I have to acknowledge that it's a great flanker. It does what a flanker should do. This is Azzaro Wanted by Night. This is the last flanker I've actually bought and spent time with. I have smelled Most Wanted, and it's okay. Nonetheless, Wanted by Night, I believe, is a great flanker. It takes the original Wanted, which is this very sweet, kind of Invictus-like, gingery, fresh, semi-sexy fragrance that I've never owned. I spent some time with samples and spraying in stores, but never really cared enough to buy it, because ultimately it is a kind of a boyish fragrance that's outside of my realm of interest, and I have no function for that because it just doesn't suit my personality. But this one actually did. When I got my nose on it, I found this one to suit me better. It is a darker version. It does feature some tobacco, some warm cinnamon, definitely making it more perfect for the cooler months, though it still has a little bit of a freshness to it. Ultimately a pretty sexy fragrance. Ultimately not the most interesting, but definitely more interesting than the original if you're asking me. That's Wanted by Night. Here at the Night Spot, I don't have the original. of this. I did have it years ago, and I actually never really cared for it. And this was before I was actually into fragrances. I wore a bottle of this for at least a couple years until I dropped it and it broke, and then I wasn't actually upset because I didn't actually love it. It smelled like eggs and toilet water a little bit to me. I think some of you can agree with that. But this is Acqua Di Gio, the Profumo flanker. This is what a Acqua Di Gio flanker should be. This is the best flanker in my opinion. Why? Because it takes that very, very fresh, airy, ozonic, semi-salty, citrusy, bright, clean, iconic DNA that so many people have come to love, and it makes it a little bit more versatile in a different sense. It actually makes it darker, which makes it something that you could pull off in the cooler months. You could also pull it off at night. I think the original is pretty versatile. You can wear a fresh fragrance anywhere, but its personality is not something I would attribute to wearing in dark colors going out at night. No problem with doing that if you do it. I think this actually works even better for that. So it does work fresh on a day-to-day wear. You can wear it to the office. It does function kind of professional smelling, but it's dark, more enhanced incense and patchouli, that earthiness, that smokiness makes it even better for other times of the year as well. Again, it makes it have a different function, and I do appreciate that. That is Acqua Di Gio Profumo. All right, up next, this is a bold flanker here because the original is Tom Ford Black Orchid. This is an iconic fragrance. This is a bold fragrance. This is a timeless fragrance if you're asking me. Not something that every guy's gonna love and appreciate. This is sweet, chocolatey, earthy, and floral. It is a little bit feminine in a way, but there's something edgy about it that if you dress it up in dark colors at night with confidence, this can really, really be quite a vibe. And they went out on a limb and made a Parfum flanker. I honestly prefer the Eau de Parfum, the original, a little bit more, but I can really respect the Parfum. They made it darker. They made it more suitable for other types of scenarios, and maybe even made it a little bit more suitable for men who might have been squeamish about wearing a fragrance like this. It does take the original DNA, it's in there. You get the earthiness, you get that sweet chocolatey feel. You do have that pretty prominent floral feel, but it is made boozier and woodier. There's rum in here. There's a more prominent earthy feel. Again, I do prefer the original a little bit, but I cannot deny this is a fantastic flanker. Even though it is a Parfum, I did try to stay away from what I call concentration flankers in this case, because a lot of the time it is the original, but it's just a little bit richer. And some of them are wonderful. In fact, Hermès H24 Eau de Parfum, I almost included that here, but then I made that decision to not go with concentration flankers that don't really do anything super different. That is the original enhanced, which is great, but not really the pivot that I'm looking for in regards to a flanker. I can easily say that even though this is fairly close to the original, it is different enough. It does function for different things, and again, it might be more appealing to a wider audience as a result. Here at the 7th spot, one of my most complimented fragrances. I don't really talk about compliments very much, but I have to admit this is one that has got me a lot of positive feedback, a lot of questions, and that is Layton from Parfum de Marly. I'm sure a lot of you have had a similar experience with this fragrance. That's why you see it in so many lists everywhere, because people have worn it and realized, oh man, people really like this stuff, I gotta talk about it. And that's great. That's not why I wear it though. I wear it because I do genuinely love the scent, but I don't wear it that much these days. One that I prefer is its only flanker. This is Layton Exclusif. This is again what a flanker should be. Undeniably based on the original, aromatic, spicy, sweet, a little fruity, but also vanilla. That vibe is in here, but they made it even darker. They added some more edgier notes, like a little bit of an animalic feel. They added some coffee to warm it up. It is a more elegant version of Layton. Layton can be pretty playful, but it can also have kind of an everyday feel depending on how much you want to spray. This is undeniably more of a formal version of the original. It smells like something I would dress up. It has, again, a little bit more of an edginess to it, making it something, again, I would wear in a different function. I love that. Undeniably based on the original, but new personality here. Layton Exclusif. We have a timeless classic here from 1992, Pasha Cartier. A bit of an edgy men's fougere, has an aspect to it that I don't think a lot of people are going to love. It's almost borderline funky, but overall an incredibly smooth fougere, a little bit barbershop-like, fresh, aromatic, spicy, mossy, a little bit clean and soapy smelling in a way, even a little creamy and sweet. Such a beautiful fragrance with a wonderful dry down and again, fantastic quality for the price. And the Parfum version, again, a Parfum flanker here, but one that I believe does not just take the original and make it richer. This is a new personality altogether. They stripped the freshness here. They stripped kind of this old world feel out of it. And instead you're left with this buttery smooth liquor, booziness, sweet and warm, a little bit ambery or resinous in a way. Has a nice smooth sandalwood in here as well. Totally different personality, a little bit modernized, but also something that is made for the cooler weather. It's still elegant and refined like the original, but something I would wear more to a nighttime dress-up event. Whereas this can work great to work or anything more professional smelling. Yes, a concentration flanker, but done right. Dig it. Here's another one here. Based on the name, you would think concentration flanker, but no, this is more of a vibe flanker here. We have the original L'Homme Ideal, an iconic DNA, if you're asking me, this beautiful take on what a man could smell like. The ideal man is what they call it. Sweet, cherry, creamy, bitter almond, a little bit of leather in there, some woods. It's warm, it's romantic smelling. It's also handsome all at the same time. A lovely fragrance for the fall and the spring, for the moderate seasons. And they took that and they made a cologne version. Now, cologne not meaning, oh, it's just a fresher version. No, this is definitely based on the original DNA, but it is a completely, you're gonna hear me say this a million times, new personality here. This takes that creamy bitter almond and woody vibe and puts it at the heart along with some bright, juicy grapefruit and pink pepper. It almost comes off smelling like a lemony soda that's creamy and sweet, undeniably tied to the original. What a beautiful personality spin on the original L'Homme Ideal. Unfortunately, hard to find. If you can get it, definitely try it out. Perfect for the summertime, a different take on a fresh citrusy fragrance that works great in the warm. Perfect flanker here, perfect. And the entire collection is wonderful, but I would say this is the biggest departure from the original, but still, again, tied to it. Moving right along, a classic from 1988, definitely ahead of its time. Timeless fragrance for sure.
That's why it's ahead of its time.
This is Fahrenheit from Dior. Not everyone's cup of tea these days. Wow, if you really appreciate it for what it is, it just makes you scratch your head and say,
What the hell is this?
This is such a crazy fragrance. I cannot believe that it came out when it did, and it smells like it could have come out last year. Fresh, slightly strange smelling violet leaf, which is kind of this metallic-y, fresh, ozonic feel. There's a fieriness and a cooling nature to it all at the same time. There is ultimately a freshness to it, but it's an unusual freshness bound by a little bit of leather and a lot of other things going on that makes it smell extremely versatile in a strange way. Because it's so weird, you can't really bind it to any particular scenario. So what can we do with this? Well, they've done a ton of flankers of this fragrance, most of which I haven't smelled, so sorry. But I do have the Parfum version. Yet again, we have another exception here. I'm actually just realizing this as we go that I did pick some concentration flankers, but I didn't pick them based on their names. I picked them based on their scent and what they do with the original DNA. This is a true flanker. This takes that original, very undeniable DNA, unquestionable, and it makes it warmer, and it makes it boozy, and it adds licorice to it, and it's spicy in a different kind of way. That booziness mixing with vanilla gives it a different dimension that this does not have. It's not quite as fresh. I would dress this up. I would wear this more in the cooler weather. I would wear it more in the evening, more so than I would do this. So it checks all the boxes for me for a fantastic flanker. That is Dior Fahrenheit Parfum. Okay, we're getting up into the top echelon here. We have another from Cartier. I love Cartier. If you didn't already know, this is Déclaration from, I want to say 1998, perhaps. Iconic DNA, fresh and spicy and woody, bitter orange. It smells wonderful. It's an easy everyday fragrance. If you can appreciate something a little bit more interesting than your average men's marketed designer fragrance these days. And a fantastic flanker. I have one other flanker that I love and almost featured here, but I feel like this one is a more interesting personality shift to the original, and that is the Dune Soir version. This takes that original undeniable DNA, spicy, but it is fresh rose. Lots of fresh rose that is still made quite masculine because it's greener. There's a woodiness in here. It is a completely new personality. It is a way more romantic take on the original. Rose is kind of a cliche associated with romance, but you smell it and you just feel it. It's like, man, I would wear this on a date. Grace loves this stuff when I wear it, and it performs very well. I love the way it sits on my skin all night. Now for me, just to get it out of the way, performance is something I don't typically have a problem with. Most fragrances will last longer than I need them to on my skin. Your mileage may vary, but I can say that this stuff was not made to be a complete slouch, and it is a wonderful personality shift to the original. Second to last, we have another rose personality shift here. Coming after the original Zaharoff Signature Parfum, which I think came out in 2018, in 2021, alongside Brass and Soul and the others from the Z creators, we had Signature Rosé. This stuff is my favorite flanker thus far in the Zaharoff Signature line, in this rainbow he's created. This beautiful array of color and personalities. A lot of them are wonderful. I love the Tabak, a beautiful personality shift, but like the Cartier I just talked about, this is one of the most interesting pivots that he made with the original DNA. This is the original. You can tell the DNA's in there. There is a cleanliness to it. There is this gentlemanly, almost fougere vibe, but it is completely different with a lot of rose in here as per the name. Different types of rose. There's oud and vanilla, which comes together on my skin with some warmth to be a little bit chocolatey. Still have a bit of sandalwood. You still have a lot of the elements in here, but it is a completely different personality that is going to appeal to different people, whereas a lot of women may stray away from this because it seems like it's going to be just an all-out men's fragrance. This one is going to be completely unisex. Anyone can enjoy it. If you don't like rose, you might still love this. If you like rose, you're going to love this. Check it out. And what is one of the strongest flankers in my opinion? This one is not all that surprising, but I don't talk about it a ton these days, and I do love it, and I think it is a wonderful pivot to the original. So we do have Dior Homme, the original. This is the 2011 reformulation, which is a timeless fragrance. This stuff, I don't need to say much about it. This put Iris on the map in the men's designer market in a way that had never been done before. The Parfum version. Yet again, another concentration flanker, but this isn't done right. Concentration, I have talked about this before, is more of a vibe. At least when it's done at its best, it is more of a vibe than it is a literal treatment of the original fragrance. This takes that original DNA and it makes it rich, yes. It darkens it for sure. It makes it more brash with leather. It is just something, when you smell it, it is clear as day or clear as night that this is meant to be worn in a different scenario. Whereas this is something, even though a little unusual, I would still wear it in the daytime. I would dress it up, but you could wear it casually. Oddly enough, it could even be a signature scent if you love it. But this is something I would reserve for the evening. Dressed up, going out either to the nines or in what I call my badass wear, wearing all black or something like that. This is a different function. This is a different personality. Again, a completely different vibe. A fantastic example of what a flanker should be. That is their own parfum. Okay, as promised, we have 5 fragrances here that I do not consider to be necessary flankers. I do not consider them to be the flanker that I would prefer, doing what a flanker should do to the original. Nonetheless, I like them. Some of them I really love, but we just gotta be real. I'm gonna keep this fair. First one up here. I love the original Apex. I like the new Apex Parfum, but this was not needed. I did a review on it. I did a first impressions unboxing video. You can check that out here. I like this scent. I do think it is a more refined version of the original. I haven't worn it as much as I've worn the original, but I can say that I like it about as much as the original when I wear it. It gives me the same vibe, but that's the issue. If I put one on and put the other on the next day, It's hard to really tell the difference in the air, other than the fact that this lasts longer for me. So I can tell, okay, it's been like 7-8 hours, I'm wearing the Parfum. But other than that, they work for the same occasions. This is a little fresher, so maybe, warm months, but it does have a lot of richness to it. It's pretty versatile, so you could wear it all year round. And I think it could have stood alone by itself. I was a little bit confused when this was announced. I'm like, do we need a Parfum? This thing is pretty strong and it functions so well for so many things. This kind of bottlenecks it a little bit, but again, it is a more refined version. I can appreciate that, but we didn't really need it. I just gotta be real. I like it. I can say, check it out, get a sample if you can, but don't go out and blind buy it. And if you're interested in one of the two, sample them both if you can, but this one might be more accessible simply because it's less expensive. Anyway, that is our first pair. That is Apex and Apex Parfum. Let's talk about Creed. One of my absolute favorite fragrances from the house of Creed. Not everyone's favorite, but can't explain that I love it. Viking. Love Viking. Love Viking. This is a wonderful take on a fougere. It is spicy and fresh, but it's also warm. It does come off a little bit mature smelling, maybe reminiscent of something like Old Spice or even Tiger Balm to some people, but I just love the way it wears. It's so gentlemanly and refined. Now, I really like the Cologne version. It's grown on me a lot. It's something that I wear in generally the same scenarios. And again, that's the problem with it. It is yet another fresh fragrance, maybe a little bit fresher. It is, again, Cologne, so it does have a Cologne vibe. It does have more of a liveliness, less maturity, maybe a little bit more versatile for younger people, but ultimately it's not that much of a personality shift to the original. I prefer the original. I could have lived with this by itself. If I had to get rid of one, I would probably get rid of the Cologne because I wear this more anyway. Again, I like it, but we didn't need it. Now this is one we definitely didn't need. There's a pretty big chasm here for me between how much I like these two. We have the original La Nuit de l'Homme. This has been talked about to death, so I'm not gonna say anything about it. All I will say is that I've always really enjoyed it. A fragrance that we did not need is the Eau Electrique. We did not need this. It really doesn't resemble the original all that much to me. It smells more like Versace Eros with maybe a touch of the original La Nuit de l'Homme in there. Very boyish and youthful and kind of generic smelling. We just didn't need it. This is fine. This is great. It's a shame that they watered it down allegedly, but the scent is still wonderful and iconic. We didn't need this. Easily say that with no remorse. I prefer this 100 times over. Up next is a fragrance that I actually really, really love. I love this fragrance. I love to wear it. Grace loves it, but we didn't really need it. This is a concentration flanker coming from a niche house. So we have the original Gris Charnel from BDK. A lovely fragrance, one of their best, honestly, that they've ever made. This stuff is incredible. It is unique. It is perfectly unisex. It is so interesting. It is like fruity fig with tea and sandalwood, kind of creamy and tropical in a way, a little bit sexy smelling, and again, perfectly unisex. And then they made an Extrait version. And this is a richer version of it. They did reproportion it. They made it so the sandalwood and everything in the base pops more, becomes more dusty on the skin, a little bit darker, a little bit edgier perhaps, but ultimately the same personality. I just might wear this at night, whereas I might wear this in the day. They layer very well. I'm not necessarily choosing them for different seasons. We didn't really need an Extrait, but again, I love it. It smells wonderful. I'm happy to have it. I wear it, but I would have been just fine with this. Just saying. And finally, a fragrance that I do like that I tried to not like, Dior Homme 2020. I was against it because they changed the original. They're getting rid of it. They're phasing it out. They replaced it with this new DNA that has nothing to do with it. But I wore it several times. I'm like, you know what? I really like this stuff. It's simple without being basic. It is a little bit interesting in regards to other men marketed fresh fragrances in the designer realm. It's great quality. I get good performance out of it. I can't deny I like this stuff. It has a good function in my life, in my wardrobe. And then they came out with the sport version, which came out earlier this year. And I was so confused when I bought this. I blind bought it and I put it in my hand. I'm like, it smells just like the original, except less sporty. There's something kind of edgy about it, like darker and brasher. and muskier in a way than the original. Ultimately, I prefer the original. This is so redundant. You could wear it in the same scenarios. Very versatile, you could dress it up or down any time of the year. Why do we have this? I don't know. We don't need this. Is it good? Yes. I like this more. This was just fine. Okay, that's gonna do it for me. This was a lot of fragrances we talked about. I wanna know what you think. What is your definition of a perfect flanker? What is one example of that? And how do you feel about the fragrances I've chosen on my list? Let's talk about it down in the comments. I'm gonna have a link to everything I talked about down in the description. It's gonna be a lot of stuff, including my new fragrance, Second Soul. I do hope you consider checking that out before it sells out and you'll never be able to get it again. Again, everything down below. And thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.